What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my initial impressions with the Battlefield 6 launch and some of the things I dislike, some of the things I like, most of all, and some balance changes that I feel like they should implement or maybe even consider. And I'm going to organize it into three categories, and that's going to be the pros, the cons, and then the balance changes. So I'm going to kind of organize them together so that I can talk about the things that, I like, dislike, and want to see changes with. And we're going to start with the good things first. I like to start with good news first. So one of my favorite things that I'm learning early in my progression is that I really like the challenges in the game. I feel like the challenges are well thought out. It's not really meant for short-term play. It's meant for long-term play, which in my opinion is for the betterment of a game like Battlefield. It's not a annual game. It's got a 2, 3, 4 year lifespan. So I think that's really good. And I've seen some people complaining about the challenges and how some of them are taking longer than they would expect, but this is not Call of Duty, it's not an annual game, so of course the challenges are going to be a little longer and a little harder to do. In my opinion, I think that's one of the better things about the game. The next thing that I really like is going to be the destruction. I think the destruction is really nice, but it does come with a price, and we'll talk about that later. Now, something that's not really being talked about here is that there weren't a lot of issues on launch. I know that some people mentioned that having issues with EA Play and playing, but I played on EA Play this whole time and I have not had a single issue. So for those who did, I'm sorry that you did, but on my end, it was pretty flawless, downloading, installing, and then getting right on the game and start playing. One huge thing that I like about Battlefield 6 is I love that there's customization of the HUD and the crosshair and the UI and everything like that. 2042 did not have any of that when it came out, and I remember being extremely frustrated with it because I thought that 2042 was going to end up being my favorite game of all time, and I ended up playing the game initially. I hated it, and then I went back like a year or a year and a half later, and I really started to like the game, but 2042 was terrible on launch. The last thing I want to give them credit for here is I'm really glad that they kept the arcadiness to Battlefield. I think when some of these games like Tarkov and all that come out, people say that they want the realistic simulator aspect, and I just don't think people really want that. Otherwise, Tarkov would be exploding right now, and it's really not. It's actually falling off. I just think that the arcadiness to Battlefield is what makes it Battlefield, and I really want to keep it that. And now let's get into the things that I don't like about the game. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm pretty hypercritical of games as a whole, especially when they first come out, especially with a company like EA and DICE. They release so many. But the first thing here that I do not like is, I know it's been addressed. I know that they're addressing the bloom, the graphical bloom, but I don't like that. But I also find that the scopes and even just the game as a whole is very blurry, and I don't know what the deal is. I thought maybe initially it was just me, but seeing some of my friends' streams and stuff on Discord, they have the same issue that I have, and I've tried playing around with some settings and stuff. I've honestly tried everything that I know of, and I can't seem to make it stop. It's pretty frustrating to have an 8x and looking 200, 300 meters, and I can't really see them. They just look like blobs. 2042 didn't have that problem. Battlefield 4 didn't have that problem. And even a game like Delta Force that I recently played also didn't have that problem. My next and probably most important thing that I don't like about Battlefield 6 currently, before Season 1, is I feel like a lot of the maps are just really bland. I just feel like there's not a lot going on in terms of uniqueness to the maps, and I am a firm believer that maps can make or break a video game. So for example, Liberation Peak, New Sobek City, Merak Valley, and even Operation Firestorm, I feel like these maps are very copied and pasted, at least the idea of them. There's giant land, there's one or two persistent buildings, and then everything else is destructible, and it happens in every game, especially if you're playing Breakthrough or even Conquest. They break all the buildings, there's no cover, there's nothing to hide behind, and I really just dislike that idea. 2042 was kind of the same way with that, and it kind of makes me not enjoy it as much. So the third thing that I dislike, and now this one's going to be very subjective because I'm kind of really into it, but I think the skins in the game look like poop. I don't think the progression skins look that great. You know, obviously I'm not asking for anime waifu stuff. I'm not really into that stuff, but I would, you know, go look at Delta Force. They did a fantastic job at all of their skins. Everything, you know, some of them cost money, but the ones that you can just earn and just randomly get, like those still look good. Even 2042 had some pretty cool skins, but I just think these currently right now look really bad, and I would like to see, you know, some different ones get added, which I'm sure they will at some point. EA loves money, so we'll see how that goes. Definitely my most controversial dislike for the game is going to be the movement. Now, I don't full-fledged hate it. I think it's pretty good now that I've like learned it a little bit, but the one thing that I dislike is when you go to jump peek or when you go to push something and you jump, your scope's like bobbing around and stuff. And I think it's a little intense. If it does a little bit, it's fine. You know, that's going to lead to some like inaccuracy, but I think that when you jump and then you land and your whole thing is doing a big ass circle, I just don't think that's good. And people are gonna say, oh well, that's like realistic. Well, this isn't a realistic game. It's arcade. It's an arcade shooter. It's the whole genre of this kind of a game, so you can't really use that argument because you respawn. If you want a simulator, go play Tarkov. So the next thing that I dislike is going to be the destruction. Destruction in the game is cool, and I definitely agree with that, but it does come at a price, and that price is performance. And I would really like to see the performance numbers if you remove destruction as a whole. You know, are we getting 140 flat frames? Are we getting 300 frames? You know, obviously we're never going to get the answer to this because destruction has been in the game for so long now, but I really do think that the destruction is causing a lot of the performance problems in this game. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on here is something that I definitely know is going to get patched, but it's something that I want to bring up because it's starting to get extremely frustrating, especially as I put more hours in. When you're taking a gunfight and you strafe left or right, you'll just randomly bounce on top of, you know, like a little rock or a fence post or something. You'll just randomly bounce for no reason. And sometimes it's like an inch or two, and sometimes it's like 4 feet in the air, 10 feet in the air. It's extremely annoying, and I really hope that they can get that fixed pretty soon because I find it extremely irritating. It's the 16th, so they haven't fixed it yet. Definitely my most frustrating thing that I'm dealing with this week, you know, my first week on the game, is the whole automatic zeroing double bind thing that people are doing. It's very frustrating to me because sniping is something that, like, I kind of take pride in playing because sometimes I'm aggressive, sometimes I'm not aggressive. You know, I don't always go to the same spot. I swap it up. You know, I'm pretty quick as well, given I'm old. But I really think that they need to remove the double bind option, like on mouse 1 or shift, or, you know, it should be forced to like B, where there's, you know, B's no other command, or you know, do something that people just can't press mouse 1 and it automatically zeros. Like, the way that it works on Delta Force is there's a range, like the rangefinder on your gun, like tells you how far of what you're looking at away is, and then you can zero to that distance. I think that's how it should work. But inherently macros are cheating in most games, and a double binding 2 actions to the same key and only having to hit it once is a macro, and I just don't like it. And my last dislike, now this is actually 2 things, but I'm going to combine it into one, is going to be the LMGs. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm delusional, but it feels like every time an LMG touches me, I die. It doesn't matter if I shoot first or if they 180 and just start shooting, I'm dead. I don't know what it is about those guns, but they feel really overtuned. Maybe it's just me. But and the thing that's kind of grouped with that is, I think that the support gets access to way too many things. I don't know what it is. Support shouldn't have smokes. I think that the assault class should have smokes. I don't know. Support has access to way too many things. Now, I know obviously you can't give smokes to every class because that would just ruin the performance of the game, like FPS wise. If the assault class is meant to push, which is why they gave the assault class the beacon in the first place and got it off of the recon class. If it's meant to push, then why wouldn't you give them the smokes? I don't know. That's just something that I was thinking about. I don't know how I failed to mention this one, so this is actually the last one. As you can see in these clips here, I think there's ghost bullets or something, or maybe it's just the bloom mechanic working, or the suppression mechanic like they had in Battlefield 4, which was terrible, by the way. Not the game, the mechanic. And I don't know where the bullets went. You know, it seems like I'm aiming at the person, and the only option for my bullet to go is down. So I don't really understand how I could possibly miss a shot like that. And in my opinion, you know, with balancing of games, and for, you know, like, this isn't a competitive game, but RNG is not good for a video game unless the game is built around RNG, you know, like a roguelike or something. But yeah, this is the most frustrating thing to me. Now that we've covered the good and the bad, I want to talk about balancing now. Now, I'm a firm believer that if there's something that you find unbalanced, that you should be able to brainstorm an idea of how to balance it. Now, I'm not going to brainstorm the specifics, but I do have a couple ideas for some of the things that I dislike. So the first topic that I'd like to discuss in terms of balancing is I think that vehicles are unbalanced currently. I'm aware that's probably a hot take, but as someone who plays infantry only, I see the struggle in trying to destroy a tank, or, you know, like an infantry tank, or, you know, whatever the case is, when there's 2 or 3 engineers sitting behind the tank, especially on breakthrough. I don't think that breakthrough maps need a tank, or if they do, they should only get one, and once it blows up, that's it, or maybe one per one per site once they capture it. So the second balancing topic that I'd like to discuss here is going to be, I think that maps on breakthrough, because this is what I play the most of, maps on breakthrough feel insanely one-sided, and I can't really pinpoint why it feels that way, but it really does. I don't know if it's the gunplay or the vehicles or the maps, or I can't really pinpoint why, but it feels that way, and I would like the devs to take a look and figure out what they can do to make it not feel like that, but we'll see moving forward. The third topic I know has already been discussed by some devs. It's the bloom or suppression mechanic, whichever one you want to call it. I think that the suppression mechanic in Battlefield 4 was my least favorite thing in probably all of video games, but I think that the bloom in this game is really intense, and obviously, like, I'm trying to build my gun so that I have a lot of precision, so I don't really have to worry about it as much, but I would really like to see the bullets go, you know, on the same trajectory wherever your dot is every time. So, like, for example, like, if I aim my sniper rifle at your head at 100 meters, I don't want to see any deviation of that bullet. I want to see it take the same path every time. Now, obviously, there's going to be bullet drop and things like that. I'm not talking about getting rid of bullet drop. I'm saying that the same trajectory shouldn't vary. There should be no deviation. It should be the same every time. The last thing that I want to discuss here is going to be, I think that the game plays better when guns are class locked. And now, I do believe in playing however you want to play, and, you know, obviously in a custom server you can do whatever you want. But I think in the regular game, like, you queue into like a breakthrough game, I think that the class lock feels so much better, because I feel like you can do less cheesy things with it. And I was actually the opposite a couple years ago. I used to think, you know, the complete opposite, but after playing Delta Force and how they class lock everything, and there's a couple guns that you can use on 2 classes, but very, very few, I think that made me realize how much more fun that it is to play like that, and I would really like to see that more moving forward. That's really going to do it for this video. I really wanted to get my opinions out there, even though I'm irrelevant in most places, but I really wanted to get it out there, and if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and if you disagree, or even if you agree, leave a comment. I'd love to hash it out in the comments, and, you know, get a discussion going, and I would love to just see if I'm alone in some of the things that I feel. Some of my friends think I complain a bit too much, but, you know, I just really want to see how other people feel. You know, it's easy to look at Reddit and see everybody complaining, but what do people really like about the game, or what do they dislike, or, you know, even the balancing part. Do you agree, disagree, you know, etc. But thanks for watching. I hope to make some more content like this in the near future. Thanks.